Hey, Good Success community, Josh Culler here, host of the Good Success podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. But before we get into this awesome episode of the Good Success podcast, we'd like to take a quick minute and thank our sponsors. And first is Sharper Business Solutions and our good friend Gary Harper. And listen, your business is a personal endeavor that you have poured your blood, sweat, and tears into. Sharper Business Solutions is a full-service solution to help you scale your dream. Sharper Business Solutions implements the Sharper process and other key systems, giving you the confidence and freedom to keep growing and scaling as a company. The Sharper team wants to come alongside you and provide the resources needed for long-term growth and success. Schedule your free consultation today at sharperprocess.com. And let me tell you, these guys are amazing. A lot of our mastermind members have hired Gary and the Sharper team to come and implement EOS and processes and systems into their business, and their scaling is very, very much apparent, and they've grown exponentially. So make sure you guys check them out one more time. That's sharperprocess.com. And we'd like to say a quick thank you to Veterans Path Up and our good friend Ken Lacey. And Veterans Path Up's mission is to provide affordable, stable housing to veterans and veteran families through the use of shared living, single-family residences, and ultimately a path to home ownership. Their emphasis is to provide housing for homeless, working, and disabled veterans, many of whom do not qualify for long-term support from any government agency. Veterans Path Up ascribes to the philosophy of helping those with a hand up as opposed to a hand out. Veterans Path Up provides a critical link to the veteran by bridging the gap to other supportive veteran services. This is accomplished through education and awareness to available support, with the ultimate goal of getting the veteran and family on a path to self-sufficiency. Through the use of private and philanthropic funding, Veterans Path Up acquires, rehabs, and places veterans into the appropriate housing for where they are with respect to their current financial picture. Improving neighborhood housing and showing veterans a path up strengthens the community and strengthens the country while helping those who have protected our freedom. You can visit veteranspathup.org to make a donation or find out how you can help impact our veterans even further. So without further ado, let's take a quick sneak peek of what you'll hear on this episode of the Good Success podcast.
So I think that biggest roadblock is actually taking the step back. And then now it's not just training as a leader for someone to do a job, but now it's actually the training and mentoring and coaching of a leader. And making sure that you not only are instilling the DNA and culture and the things that you want for your people to do, but also then, helping encourage them and coach them and let them grow in their own space, and giving them that truly operational space to be successful. And so that's hard.
Welcome back to the Good Success Podcast. I am your host, Josh Culler. Tom Olson sitting right here next to me, president of Good Success. What's going on, Tom? How you doing?
What's going on, Josh?
I mean, this is after the new year. I think this is going to be published in late February, but how was your new year? Like, the year's gone by so fast. It's crazy.
We had a great time.
You had a lot of people at your house.
Yes, we had 35 people at my house. We had a good we stayed up until midnight playing games. It was pretty fun. We brought in the new year playing, I think it was pigs or something. I don't know.
Pigs?
You roll a bunch of these pigs. It's kind of like dice, but we had a good time.
I was gonna come over, but we had family over.
That's what people
and then
say, Josh.
I
It's
fell
okay.
asleep
It's okay,
at
Josh.
11:50.
Oh, man.
We were so tired.
My 5-year-old stayed up until midnight, Josh.
I don't know, man. It was crazy. But we got a awesome guest on the show today.
Can't
I'm
wait.
very excited about this interview. We've got out of Kansas City, Missouri, Nathan Brooks. Nathan, what's going on, my friend? How you doing?
I am well, gentlemen. How are you guys doing?
We're doing awesome. So
What's the weather like in KC right now?
it's the same
It
here,
is
right?
literally like 20 something degrees, gray, and kind of
Rainy. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be sunny for the next 3 days here, so maybe like mid 40s, even upper 40s Friday.
Well, see, that's not bad.
Yeah, not bad for I'll take it for January.
Yeah, we got a little bit of snow on the ground too, and it's not that bad. It's a
No.
little dusting, but
It's just
yeah,
yucky.
Yeah, Kansas City's weather doesn't mess around. I think I mentioned it last time we had, I don't know who was on the maybe it was Eddie Wilson, who was in Kansas City, and we interviewed him. We were talking about the weather. But Nathan is out of Kansas City, Missouri. He's the CEO of Bridge Turnkey Investments, CEO of Mission Homebuyers, CEO of Bridge Home Team, and he has a new, which we'll have him talk about, a new meetup called Bridge Real Estate Investing Meetup. And I'm going to let him give all the statistics of everything that's going down and how he had 90 plus members at the first event, which is freaking awesome. But we'll have him talk about that here in just a second. But before we get into it, if you guys haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the Good Success Podcast. We're on all the podcast platforms, and make sure you go there, subscribe, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. 5 stars would be amazing. We much appreciate that. Today's quote is, "What I really wish I knew 25 years ago is the value of a network," which is Quincy Long's quote, and from episode 106 of the Good Success Podcast. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen to it. You're not going to regret it. Quincy is just outstanding human being. Tom always says, and it's probably double for me, that Quincy has forgot more than you.
Yes, I'm telling you, the guy is like Yoda when it comes to investing. When it comes to, one of his favorite quotes is, bigger is not always better, but better will always lead to bigger. Right. And I think that goes right along with our good success theme. Absolutely. And just like focusing on having the right kind of success every day will lead to something bigger at some point, but that's not what we focus on. We focus on that daily success, that you just do the right thing. You're the right person doing the right thing the right way for a long period of time, and just daily doing that.
Then the Community Go-Giver event, it is coming up fast, and it is not going to stop. June 26, 27, 28, right here in our office in Gary, Indiana. A lot more details to come out soon, so be on the lookout. If you haven't followed us on all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we're going to be publishing stuff very soon with like full details unleashed with all the speaking lineups, the schedules, and all that. But you can get your tickets right now at communitygogiver.com. Go there, and then you'll learn more about it. And then some of the speakers that we have are going to be
Jeff
awesome.
Johnson is going to be there, talking about how he's raising values in different neighborhoods, and how he doesn't just focus on making all the money. He makes awesome money, as you guys can see about it with him flipping amazing houses. But he's looking at like, how can I raise the value? Well, that's right. It's not flipping. It's retail,
flipping,
right?
It's retailing.
So whatever. It's still flipping. We give him a hard time in the mastermind. You can give him a hard time too if you come to the Community Go-Giver event. But he's like if he raises a value of 30 or 40 grand for one house, just think of that extra value he's bringing to the whole neighborhood when he's doing so. So I thought that was a really good fit for the Community Go-Giver event. He's gonna be talking on the very first day when we're talking about fixing and flipping, along with Jim Ingersoll. About finding good contractors and kind of dealing with that. And we're just going to have a great day. That first day, we'll actually go out and look at one of our own personal fix and flips that we're doing right now as well. Just kind of show you what we do, run the numbers, let everybody kind of see what we're doing here when it comes to fix and flip on that first day. Then the second day goes into turnkey rentals. And then the third day is more of like low-income housing. So we'll go to Gary, Indiana that third day and show you a house in there as well. But we got jam-packed lineup, and it's going to be amazing. I can't wait to express where we're at with flipping the city of Gary, Indiana, and kind of like how things are progressing in that respect as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So communitygogiver.com is where you can pick your tickets up. So make sure you do that. And like I said, follow us on all of our social media accounts, and you'll find the full details there. So without further ado, let's jump into this interview with Nathan Brooks. Nathan, I'm excited to have you on the show. We got a lot of great topics to talk about today. But before we get into it, do us a favor, for the people that don't know who you are, introduction of who you are, all the things that you do, even though it might take a while to explain all that, but just an introduction for the people that are listening now.
Sure. Well, and just thank you again for the opportunity to be on here with you guys, and really excited. I love what you guys are doing, and I actually wrote down your core values. I love the core values of your mastermind, and it really definitely hits home. So it's cool. It's cool what you're doing. So I'm Nathan Brooks. I am out of the Kansas City market. And like you mentioned, we have a number of businesses here in KC. We have Bridge Turnkey Investments. That's kind of our umbrella business. And we're a turnkey operator. We really focus on having really highly renovated, should I use the word flipped properties?
You can. It's safe.
Yeah. Okay.
Your secret's safe with us.
Yeah. Please don't tell. And so we are on pace, for the second day of the year, where our target's 120 fix and flips and 80 wholesale deals out of KC. So that 200 deals for 2019. And so that's in the fix and flip. We really focus on having anything that doesn't have a 10-year useful life or more, we fix to replace it. So we're just really focused on that quality of the rehab. It's basically a retail flip for a turnkey house. Mm-hmm. So, and then we have mission home buyers. So like I said, that's our wholesale side. So we have a full-time sales manager and a couple folks that are in that wholesale division, and we have Bridge Home Team. So that's our retail division, and we are targeting to do in that 20 million range retail for 2019, and so excited about growing that and bringing on some amazing realtors as well. And I have a staff of around 10, so that's we're kind of in the midst of hiring at the moment, but that's roughly staff of 10. And then, like you mentioned last, our meetup, we call it BRIM, BREIM, or Bridge Real Estate Investing Meetup, which is more of a mouthful. Mm-hmm. And so we are pumped about it, because just really serving the community, not just kind of that lowest common denominator of folks. I think a lot of times, we really want to serve all levels of investing, all levels of people with experience. And so we have 4 principles of our meetup, which is, connecting, learning, helping others, and then taking action. And so we really made that about not just, going in some place, spending money, having somebody talk. We're not trying to sell you anything from the front. We're really focused on seeing those people, whoever wants to be a part, succeed. So pretty crazy. We've had over 3,000 views on our Facebook lives in just a couple weeks, and we've had over 1,000 people join in our Facebook group in less than 30 days, and had almost 100 people show up at our first meetup. So pretty amazing.
That's awesome. So if somebody's in the Kansas City area, how would they be able to find out more about the meetup group?
Okay, so you just Facebook. It's literally Bridge Real Estate Investing Meetup, and or you can connect to me. I'm on Facebook, or Bridge Turnkey Investments as well. So all those will kind of get you in that place. I own the domain bridgemeetup.com, but there's nothing there, so don't go there.
It's so new, so you don't have anything there, right?
Yeah. So I went and snagged it just so I knew I'd have it.
Right.
So bridgemeetup.com, but everything's on the Facebook right now, and you can connect there. And you don't have to be in the Kansas City area to be in there either, so you can just come and connect and learn that way.
Very cool. Well, that's awesome. Thank you.
I don't know what questions you have, Josh, but I already have 2 questions.
Okay, well, go ahead.
So are
we
okay with questions?
Yep, you're good.
It's my job, Nathan, just so you know, on this podcast, to whatever Josh has planned to completely screw it up. So
perfect. At least you know your job.
Yeah.
At least you know what it is, right?
He has one job.
Yes.
And he does it.
Isn't that what visionaries do? They just come in and screw everything up.
That's exactly right.
And then you have 100%. To find somebody to clean up your mess. All right. Okay. So I love the name Bridge. I think that's something, and I'm not sure if Josh has this as a question or not. I was trying to peek over to see if that was one of the questions or not. But maybe I would love to hear where that comes from. If you know us, if you listen to us at all, we have a statement that we say all the time: be a conduit, not a bucket. It's like, it's not for us, it's for somebody else. And that's kind of the same concept of a bridge, right? You're connecting 2 different groups. So I just kind of, where did that come from? Is there a story behind it? I'd just love to hear that.
Well, it was definitely one of those things. My business partner David and I were talking about it, and he had actually come up with the idea. But we really, in our mission as a company, is a bridge to wealth and freedom through real estate. So that's what we talk about, being a bridge. And also, like you said, to use the conduit word, or it's a pathway, right? And so in our meetup, it's the same way. It's a bridge to connecting, learning, helping others, and taking action, and actually connecting the dots, and bridges metaphorically and really truly do that. And so that it's become not just a symbol, but a reality that we get to be a part of for our clients and our meetup members. So
that's so cool. I love having people on our, and most of the people, we find out, most people that are attracted to us, or that we go out and reach out and find out, are very similar in their kind of thought process behind why they're even in business, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So the second question I have is, you kind of went two different directions with me, so I want to make sure I understand. So you're a turnkey provider, correct? But you also said retail. Are you just saying that you pretty much do retail finishes, but you sell those properties turnkey to the investor?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And we have done some flips that we've put on MLS, so not to be confusing there. And then we also have the quote unquote retail, like realtor side of our business. That's Bridge Home Team.
Right.
So in actually buying and selling, a buyer's, home for their personal residence. So,
but your two core customers really are like the turnkey buyer who wants like a high-end finished house that's going to, have a long-term, stability. And then I'm assuming you property manage these as well, or no?
We have a third-party property manager.
Okay.
So we early on, we had started our own property management, and we went from 0 to 140 doors in about 18 months. And we discovered that we were not very good at property management and hated it. And so what we realized was we were really great at buying houses. We're really great at renovating houses, and we're really great at selling and helping clients invest in real estate. We were not so good at the property management. So we reached out and have now developed a really great partnership. And so we have a very smooth transition and, within that transaction, but we do not manage.
Gotcha. Okay. So your core customers, so you actually have three core customers. Your core customers are your sellers, right? Obviously when you're wholesaling or whatever. And then your wholesale buyers, which are probably mostly fix and flippers or potentially even, people that want to own rentals. And then your turnkey buyer, that's who you're servicing.
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
Exactly.
All right, great stuff.
Crystal clear.
Awesome. Crystal clear. That's where we want to be. All right, so let's talk about the business a little bit. So we're not going to go into the nitty gritty stuff about flipping homes and creating your turnkey investments for your investors. Let's talk about your team. So obviously you've grown a lot over the past few years that you've had all the bridge companies, right? So one thing that when we were conversing back and forth that you were interested in talking about was leadership. So when it comes to the leading a team and building a team specifically. What are some things that maybe people miss that you've noticed in leadership and building their leadership skills? Maybe some things that you've learned that you can pass on to other people that are trying to build teams. Maybe they have a current team already of 5 to 10 people, or maybe they're just starting to build their team. What are some things that you can share in that realm?
Love the question. So I think it's really easy to think that you're a leader. It's really hard to be a leader. And I think a lot of times what happens is, if anybody's read the book E-Myth, the story starts with Michael Gerber, E-Myth, and he talks about like having a company and he's building a widget and he's answering the phone and whatever. And so all of a sudden it's time to, hire somebody because he can't do everything. And in the midst of that, oh great, now I have a bookkeeper. I hate doing bookkeeping, hey, this new hire is a bookkeeper. And now they're the warehouse manager for the widget and answering the calls and come to find out all the things that new hire is doing is not the way he wanted it done. But he wasn't the leader that he needed to be to develop processes, understand what needed to happen. And so one of the things I've talked about a lot, and by the way, it's like my own story too, because we kept hiring people, not having a clear process, not having clear onboarding process, not having clarity on what their job is, crazy fundamental things like that, right? And then wondering why the outcome didn't equal what we thought it should look like. And so we started reverse engineering that back. And so instead of trying to solve a process or product problem with a person, we had to solve it with a process. And then we had to make sure that we trained somebody on what we actually wanted to look like. And there's this terrifying thing. I think it's in Good to Great. Jim Collins talks about, I think it's that book, but telling somebody 7 times or 10 times or 20 times. And so as leaders, we have to start from the beginning and the fundamentals and make sure that we don't expect somebody to know something. We actually take the time to train on it. We take the time to lead on it. We take the time to mentor on it and coach on it. And that ultimately the outcome of what that employee is doing is our responsibility. And so it's been a huge growth and learning curve, and it still is, and something that I'm just massively passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. So then along the same lines, maybe this is one of the answers that to my question here. When scaling your company to the size it currently is, and then going forward as well, what are some roadblocks that you have hit, coming out of the gate, scaling to where you're at? Maybe it was yesterday that you had a roadblock, or a year ago, or whatever it was, but how did you overcome those roadblocks as well?
Well, I think the most glaring and current example is going through the traction and kind of coaching process, EOS, building out what that company organization looks like. And it's one thing to be the leader or visionary in your company, but it's another thing to be the leader of leaders within your organization. And so I think that when we start looking at not just like, oh, I want to build this business, but I want to build a business of leaders, and leadership is actually one of our core values of our company. And our business coach, Gary, literally said, will you hire and fire somebody over this problem? And I said, yeah, yes, we will. So I think that biggest roadblock is actually taking the step back. And then now it's not just training as a leader for someone to do a job, but now it's actually the training and mentoring and coaching of a leader. And making sure that you not only are instilling the DNA and culture and the things that you want for your people to do, but also then, helping encourage them and coach them and let them grow in their own space, and giving them that truly operational space to be successful. And so that's hard. And there's a book just out, Jocko Willink, Dichotomy of Leadership, and he talks about that, where it's like, hey, you have a line, and it's, sometimes, you might have to come forward and be really, really micromanaging in your people, and then you have to know when to pull that back and know when to let it go and give it back and give the operational space back. So, I wouldn't say we have it totally figured out, but I would say that is the biggest opportunity in my business, and it's also the biggest challenge right now.
As soon as you think you have it figured out, you're probably wrong. So
yeah.
Don't ever think that you have it figured out. I'll tell you that. That's for sure. I mean, most leaders need to understand that their job is to focus on moment. Like the sub leaders, their job is to focus on momentum, but you never want any leader that's not willing to be a leader. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't want any leader that's not willing to train, to ask the questions of their people, to go through all the processes of leadership. Leadership itself is a process. You have to ask the questions. You got to figure out what it is that people need or what they're good at. Are they properly aligned with your vision or where you want to go? And then how would they do it? And then try to figure out how to work together and getting that to produce, and then getting something to produce. And then that's just the next step. You're productive, and then you kind of create this, like, it's just automatic, that momentum where it's going to happen over and over and over again. Once you've been there and you can be profitable on it, then you can train somebody else to kind of start taking over your duties, or train up, so that way you can become the leader of leaders. But us as like the leaders of leaders, like we have to constantly be instilling that in every one of our asset leaders or every one of our leadership teams in our businesses. So,
well, and it's not only just the being aware of, like, I like the idea of, you're training up or you're leading up. I can't remember the language you use there, but I love that, the visual of that. And the other piece of it is you can't rest on this problem either. Mm-mm. You can't just assume that, oh gosh, now they have it. And instead we have to assume that it is our responsibility to be the leader. In that, the clearer you are on your vision, like you said, the clearer you are within the culture of your company, the clearer you are in what seat you sit in, I sit in, right? Then I am held accountable to my responsibility, and ultimately the success of your whole company. We talk about this all the time in my office. That I can't remember who originally said it, but my company's only as good as I'm going to be as a leader. And there's a lot of iterations of that quote, but so I also have to be working on myself as a leader all the time, and then I have to be encouraging my team as a leader all the time. And so it's a job, right? It's a responsibility.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because you kind of said what I think what most of leaders struggle with is like which one of your people need you to be more micromanager type, and which leader you need to let go of, because it's constantly moving. And sometimes they get something and everything's great, and then like a year later they're not getting it. And I'm like, it's the same thing we talked about a year ago. You gotta have to insert yourself, and sometimes being a leader is takes a lot of courage. It really does, because you have to be able to hold people accountable to the expectations that you've set forth, but you also have to make sure that the expectations have been set forth.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think, when you start to, I'm that visionary personality, to use the traction language, and having the visionary and the integrator relationship and understanding, like, it's so easy to say, hey, you know what, let's go flip a bunch of houses. And it's another thing to actually know, hey, A, did we actually buy and sell the houses we talked about? B, did we do it in the time that we were allotted? Did we, have the same outcome financially that we expected? Was the product that we created and renovated correct? So now the better the tools we are, and the better understanding we have as the leader, the more we can help guide. And I typically use the globe example. So as the leader, if you can't put your hands on the globe and feel the pulse of what's happening, then you have a problem. And you need to know what the data is. You need to have that communication up and down the chain of command, if you will, and to be able to come back. If there is an issue, then you can come back and look at the numbers. You can come and talk to your people, and you actually have what, we expected XYZ and this didn't happen. Let's talk about it. And otherwise you don't necessarily even know where to go to start with what the problem is and who to help solve it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And you use the term leader of leaders, which I love that term, right? And even in our company, we have 30 something employees, and we have 5 or 6 asset leaders for the companies that we have. Yeah. So we have those asset leaders, and then there's lower level employees below them. I'm not entirely sure how your company's structured, but one question that I have is, how do you determine if somebody's not a leader and has that mentality? Because you said that one of your core values is leadership, and you're willing to hire and fire off of that. So how do you determine if somebody actually has that trait of a leader? And then what do you do? And you even mentioned that you have to, or both of you mentioned that you have to keep that going, right? You can't just expect them, hey, you're a leader now, and then never revisit that. So what's your process with that whole thought?
It starts with the kind of the conversation at the beginning before we're even hiring somebody. And so it's like, okay, if your job is to answer the phone, right? So let's say it's a low level employee, their job is to literally answer the phone. Then I would just start asking questions around, like, how would you go about doing that? What would be, let's say that there was a missed phone call. How would you follow up? What does that look like? What would be the importance level of that, call based on, some sort of circumstance? And we also look at their DISC profile and understand, like, what type of personality is this person? And did we even set them in the right seat in the first place to make sure that they're going to be successful? But then the other piece of the leadership puzzle is also stating it from the offensive side. And I talk about this all the time with my team, is we are on offense. And part of that means, like, if it's returning a phone call, or it's following up with a construction site, or it's, making sure that the closing's happening. And so we have those data points for each person. And now when we hire somebody, we literally say, this is your job. These are the tasks you're responsible for. These are the numbers you're responsible for. And then we can say, listen, if you are not on offense, you're not making sure these are happening, or you're raising the flag and saying, hey, this is a problem, no matter what seat you sit in, then you are not being a leader. You are, even if it's a leader of one, right? You are responsible to be a leader of you. And if you're not willing to take that responsibility and autonomy in our business, then you're not a fit.
Hey guys, we're going to take a quick break from the podcast and say a huge thank you to our sponsor, Jerry Padilla, a senior loan originator with Prime Lending. And whether you're a first-time homebuyer or you're well-versed in the process, buying or refinancing a home can be an exciting and rewarding experience with Prime Lending. Serving you in every state, they take the time to listen, and they'll work with you to find a home loan that fits your needs.
With the mortgage refinancing, lower your interest rate, lower your monthly payments, shorten your term, or get the cash for whatever you need. Prime Lending also has several options for renovation loans so that you can find what works best for you in your home project. Make sure to contact our good friend and Good Success Mastermind member, Jerry Padilla, who is a senior loan originator with Prime Lending and has over 11 years of experience in the mortgage industry. You can learn more about Prime Lending and what they have to offer by contacting Jerry Padilla at goodsuccess.com/prime lending. So make sure you take advantage of that to learn more about them. Now, without further ado, let's get back to the show. I love that. There's a lot of freedom in that whole concept, but there's a lot of responsibility as well. It seems like so I love that. So let's talk about the turnkey side. So one of your core businesses is the turnkey, and we definitely appreciate everything that you've shared up to this point, and some great points. If you guys weren't listening, make sure you go back and listen to those. So why for you Kansas City? So we've had a couple people on that are out of the Kansas City market, and it seems to be a pretty good market right now, and has been. It's a pretty steady market. So why do turnkeys work so good in Kansas City? And what are some tips that you can give people for the renovation side? One of the things that you mentioned that you're not good at property management, but you're good at renovation. So what are some things that you can give us in that side of the business?
Okay, so sure. So on the Kansas City side of things, we've now studied quite a number of the turnkey markets, and one of the things is looking at the balance of like, okay, what's the city infrastructure like? What's the, population size? What's the growth or, ebb and flow of that? What are the industries within the city? So when you look at all those things, it's a good sized city. It's very stable. When you look back at like the 07, 08, 10, 12, there was, it certainly had, lost some value, but it was nothing like the East and West Coasts, the Nevadas, Floridas, New Yorks, or whatever of the world. So that brings a lot of stability. There's a huge demand for rental units. In like everywhere in the US, there's a lack of great inventory on the market. We have great pricing as well. So, we can still find at least close to the 1% deals. So, having a $100,000 house running for around $1,000 a month. And the other key piece of this, and I think a lot of people who invest in real estate miss this, are the taxes. And so the taxes in Kansas City are actually relatively low comparatively to many MSAs in the US. And so, you can buy a $100,000 house at say, somewhere between $800 and $1,200 a year for the taxes. And so, it's just a great, numbers wise, market. And then, like I had mentioned, the diversity of businesses. So from literally, John Deere, Farmers Insurance, Sprint, there's a number of railroads, there's Garmin, there's H&R Block. There's just a ton. I'm sure I missed a bunch too, but there's a ton of different businesses. Cerner, gosh, how can I forget Cerner? They have multi-billion-dollar contracts, and so it's just really brought a lot of stability to that investing. And so we found our clients, really love the market, and they love the property inventory, age of properties, and then of course, to your second question, the renovation that we deliver.
Yeah. So jump on into that. What are some things that in the renovation side, because you said that's something that you guys do excellent. What are some things that you can give people that maybe have turnkey businesses on the renovation side?
Yeah, sure. So, it really starts like anything in real estate on the buy, right? And so we have to buy them right to rehab them right to, sell them. And so I'll kind of hit the high level first, and then I'll talk a little bit about the process if that's cool. Mm-hmm. So we look at it holistically from the top down. So if we can't make sure it has a 10-year useful life within our numbers and margins, then we just don't buy it. So we're not going to skimp on a renovation and deliver something that's sub quality. And I think, and not to say that there I'm sure there's great turnkey companies out there who deliver something that's a less, fully renovated home than what we do. And that's fine. We just know you have to make sure that you're naming exactly what your product is, and it's in alignment with what your clients are expecting. And so, we early on wanted to make sure that we were 100% transparent. So we literally deliver the scope of work to our clients. And so, the process looks like this. We go and, work up that property. We send our contractor out to look at it. We make sure we say, okay, is this a deal? Yes or no? We then put a full scope of work together, generally before we're even closing on that property. So we want to make sure we have a full scope of work, the thing's ready to rock. And so we literally don't launch a project without a couple of different things. So we have a full scope of work, detailed scope of work. We have a selection sheet. So it's literally built out in Podio. It's literally down to the color on the wall, the grout color, the tile color, the SKUs of, appliances. And we can literally print that out. And so we have that, scope of work, and then a project summary, which just kind of gives the detail, or the high level rather. This is the week it's going to start. These are the 6 weeks of what we're going to do during the renovation. So literally anybody could walk in the house, look at the wall, see the scope of work, the selection sheet, and the project summary. And if it's week 4 and it says week 4 on the sheet, you can look and see, okay, well, we should be in paint and sheetrock's finished and paint's ready to go. And so it's just really clear what's supposed to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So does that make sense from the high level?
Yeah. Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
And then for the turnkey client side too, we also make sure that when we're selling the property, for us personally, we make sure that, every property, we pre-inspect everything. So it's inspected. We already know any issues and we've already dealt with them. And then we literally give the client an XLS, spreadsheet with what the issue was, how we resolved it, and then a picture of the resolution, along with, the scope of work and the professional pictures. And so by the time our client sees our product, they can look at it. It's very transparent as to what's happened, and then they can make a really, really good decision on it.
Right. Absolutely. So you mentioned a couple of things, but let's go to the investor side. So you have the turnkeys, you have your investors that you sell your turnkeys, you sell your turnkeys to the investors. Yep. And you even mentioned that you've studied a couple other turnkey markets. What are some things that, besides some of the stuff that you've mentioned, a couple minutes ago, that you bring extra value, go above and beyond for your investors that maybe somebody else isn't doing that? Maybe somebody's listening, they're a turnkey provider, they're not doing this extra step for their investors to make sure that they're taken care of and that value is brought.
Yeah. Well, I think that inspection report is one of those things, right, for sure. Mm-hmm. When they get to literally, the client can literally pull that up and pull out the information, see exactly what's on the report, good or bad or ugly, whatever it was. We're not hiding anything. We're literally saying, hey, guess what? We're on offense, like we talked about, right? And we're showing that leadership as a company that we're not going to just dodge you, or you get this inspection report and you're like, oh gosh, are they going to repair all my stuff? There's none of those fearful things. And if you're a turnkey provider, you're new in that space, and you're having those issues, it's a good reminder to, hey, there's certain things in your construction process maybe you need to go back and look at as well. So if you keep missing something and it's coming up in those reports, go address it in your process, right? Put it in your construction process. And then secondly, we also offer a 12-month warranty on our scope of work. So not only do we give the client the scope of work, but then we offer an actual 12-month warranty on the whole scope. And it's not like some, $500 home warranty. We literally, offer it to them, out of our own pockets. We're repairing those. So if it's something that we did and it wasn't done right, or they're having an issue with it, then we're going to fix it or replace it during that first 12 months.
Interesting. I like that a lot. So one of the things that you mentioned, if I heard it correct, is that in the inspection report, if something comes back and it's, something needs to be updated or something needs to be changed, you have the resolution to that problem in the inspection report with that.
Not only is it the resolution, but it's literally a picture of the resolution.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
If it was like, there's a low-hanging branch on the southeast corner of the house, we literally have a picture of the branch that was, cut, and there's no issue now on the southeast corner.
I like that a lot. And that's a step that maybe a lot of turnkey providers aren't taking. Is that safe to say?
Mm-hmm. I would think so.
Yeah. Just something simple.
So how are you selling your turnkeys? Are you guys pretty much all direct to sellers on those? You guys have your own way to sell?
Yeah, we're primarily direct to sellers. We've seen or buyer. Yeah. Thank you. It's direct to the buyer. We have seen pretty incredible growth as far as our construction capacity, and so we're definitely ramping up some sales and marketing efforts on that side, and we are looking at some other third party options as well, but really focus on having that direct client relationship, direct client communication, and we really enjoy making sure that we have that, take that time, help the client understand, educate them, and make those long-term plans. So that's for the most part how we're selling.
So where are you finding them? Are you guys doing your own marketing though, or are you guys going and finding them in other areas?
As far as the buyers?
The buyers, yeah.
Yeah, we're doing some marketing. We're working on that. Historically, we really haven't done a whole lot of marketing. We mainly get clients that hear about us from referrals of other clients, or they've heard about our company. I've been on Bigger Pockets a number of times, and we're SEO, Google. We now we get a lot of traction that way too. So we've been really fortunate that way, and for better or for worse, when we have had issues, we've taken care of them, right? And we've taken care of those clients, and so it's paid dividends as far as our clients knowing that we'll take care of them and they come back.
It always does.
Yeah, and it always goes the other way too. If you cut the corner and don't do the right thing the first time, then we know how that outcome happens too.
Yeah, make sure you guys take note on that. And that's in any business. It's not just turnkeys, it's any business. So thank you for sharing all that. So let's kind of switch course here, and we're going to wind this podcast down. It's been a great interview. We appreciate you and all the stuff that you've shared up to this point. One thing that I want to talk about a little bit is personal growth. So obviously you're huge on books. You've mentioned several books on this show. Even before we got on the show, you talked about a couple books that you're reading and whatnot. You're having the entire company read The Go-Giver, which is awesome, which as a company, we read a book once a quarter, and one of the books that we had was that's awesome. And one of the books that we had was The Go-Giver. So awesome stuff. Now, obviously Go-Giver's one of them, but what are some other books maybe that you can recommend to people and what you've learned from them?
Okay, cool. Well, I love that you guys do the book a quarter to. It's such a great time, and we actually do leadership lunch once a week with our whole staff. So we literally sit down, we cater lunch, we read a book together, we discuss it. So it's a special thing, and one of my personal favorite times of the week. Honestly, it's a lot of fun. And so definitely one of the hugely impactful, most impactful books really in some time was the Jocko Willink Extreme Ownership. And I we talked about leadership earlier in this conversation, and I distinctly remember coming back from mastermind I was in and kind of having this moment of clarity, except it was the painful kind where you're like, oh crap, all those burning dumpster fires back in the office, it's your fault, buddy. And there's a line in that book, there's no bad teams, only bad leaders. And I encourage you, if you are in any leadership capacity, in literally, even if you're the leader of one, so pretty much anybody, that book is so good. And so it goes from, so Jocko Willink is an incredible businessman and MMA black belt in jiu-jitsu, and owns a number of other businesses, and is really incredible entrepreneur, but was a Navy SEAL, retired Navy SEAL commander. And he puts it in perspective where he talks about a military story, right? Some sort of war story, and then a principle, and then a business application. And it is just a brilliant book. I love the way it's written, and the stories really ring true, not just in that military application, but in the real world leadership and business as well. So I love that book.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. We had that book as one of our books for the quarter as well. That was last year, I believe.
It's been a while. It's been about 18 months or two years. Or something.
It was right when we first moved into this office. So
okay.
I remember that. Yeah.
It's such a good book. You want more books?
Yeah, give us one more.
All right, perfect. So we're actually reading with our team right now. We're reading Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. And, it's quote unquote a sales book, or negotiator. He was, former lead hostage negotiator for the FBI. And let me tell you, it's not just a sales book. It is all about a life book and communication book. And, it's one of those things where we started diving into those chapters and learning together as a team. And I tell you what, a lot of problems stem from communication or lack of communication. And so it's one of those places where we can really influence and help our team as a leader learn better communication skills, listening skills, understanding skills, and really like problem solving skills, which all come out of this book. And so it's been a lot of fun, also making them a little squirmy and uncomfortable role playing in the midst of, especially, you get your construction guys or all of our introverted folks. But you know what? It's been a huge growth opportunity and learning opportunity and an awesome book.
That's great stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I love Never Split the Difference. Yeah. I love Chris Voss too. He lives that too. He's really good. But I think you kind of hit on one thing. I just want to hit a little bit more, and it's listening and paying attention. Like that's really what most people miss in that whole sales process and the whole even leadership. We talked about leadership,
communication in general.
Well, no, but what we don't realize sometimes is we think communication is just me talking. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, the person listening is doing a whole lot more communicating than the person that's doing the speaking. And if you can just learn one thing this year, learn to listen and learn to pay attention, learn to understand, have emotional intelligence. What do other people want? I talked to a guy this last weekend, and he's like, I'm coming to work with you. I have this other guy that's gonna that wants me to come work for him, but like I sat down and talked to him. He wants to pay me this astronomical amount of money as an employee, but I want to work for you because you're going to pay me this small amount as an employee, but you're going to help me grow my business. And like I told him this is what I wanted, and I told you this is what I wanted, and you're the one offering me what I wanted. And it's only because I listened to what the guy said and said, okay, this is the alignment you want to be. If I want to be properly aligned with him, then this is the direction that this is what the plan I need to put together for you. And the other guy didn't listen. And it's honestly, it's not very hard. Mm-mm. But sometimes we have so much to say, and so we're just waiting for the other person to stop talking so we can just say what we're going to say, and we're not really listening to what they have to say. So it's all in that book. It doesn't even really talk about Never Split the Difference sometimes. It's kind of funny. No. Like the actual concept of Never Split the Difference isn't really in the book, or at least I didn't catch it for some reason. I've read it twice, but
it's in there. It's more about like, he talks about you can't split the difference in the life of a human, right? So, it's like, okay, it's one thing if you're, well, actually, I remember it's in the first or second chapter, and he's talking about when he goes into the Harvard, I think it's a Harvard classroom, and they talk about, you have parameters on which you can negotiate with your, fellow classmate, and he kept just crushing everybody. And so that was the start of that, where you're not there to just say, oh, well, you're at 100, Tom, and I'm at 50, so let's call it 75 and make this up, wrap this up. It's like, well, Tom, tell me what's so important about, what you have going on, or whatever the question is we're solving. And so a lot of times he wasn't making it about the number at all. He was making about what the problem was that we were solving. And then, so that was the context to the Never Split the Difference. And I just want to piggyback the communication part and the listening part. I don't think people really appreciate that. And the sad part is, or the most important part is, that if you actually, with true interest, listen, you'll get so much more out of it. You will have an interested party vested in then hearing what you have to say. B, and then if you use the skills that come out of a book like that, where mirroring and labeling and understanding that, like you said, emotional intelligence, you will be so much more successful in those conversations, whether it's with your spouse or your kids or your boss or your partner or whatever, So I'm hugely passionate about that.
Yeah, it's not Never Split the Difference isn't really the premise of the book. It's more or less you don't have to. You don't have to split the difference, because if you actually pay attention to what they want, solve their problem, you can really get whatever you want, or whatever the value of that proposition is.
Exactly. And truly understand what problem you're solving, and be in it to help other people, and out of that, or at least understand them, right? So you understand them, and then you can understand the problem. And man, we could do a whole nother one on just that book.
Absolutely. And one thing, piggybacking off both of you guys, one thing that I have learned over the past few years, and especially at my young age, a lot of times you just like to talk, but one thing that I learnof Tom was this. No, not me. I just host a podcast.
This is why you host a podcast.
That's exactly right. But one of the things that I learned from Tom was, one time we were out at dinner, and he was just being really quiet, and we were around some people that Tom hadn't met yet, and I texted him, I'm like, hey, you okay? And he said, yeah, I just like to listen. And I thought about it, and I'm like, that's a really good concept, actually. And this was, I don't know, maybe this is a year or two ago. And that's when I really started getting on this boat of like, just listen. And I can tell you guys, just from a young person's standpoint, is you can learn so much, so much, way more than you ever did in school, if you just listened to people talk. Even, listen on this podcast. I mean, there's so much education just from hosting the podcast that I have gained from interviewing, the 100+ that I've done. And if you just listen to people, I told Emily this one time, we were at the mastermind, and she sat next to Quincy, and I think you even mentioned something about it. And Quincy Long is just, we talked about it at the beginning of the podcast, but you just listen to that guy talk, you go learn so much. And so like you guys have been saying, even just communication at the level of your employee to employee, you could learn from each other, and the day-to-day tasks that they're doing, and how can I help you, how can you help me, that kind of thing. So, and I think that's that whole Scrum is like, that whole Scrum idea is big on that too, is you're listening to each other,
you have to
talk, and the teamwork that goes into the communication and the listening to each other is huge, because sometimes you get in a room where you have a team member that just likes to talk the whole time and doesn't let anybody else talk, and no problems get solved.
Kind of like Emily, right?
Right. Emily's she's just been talking the entire time through the podcast.
Talking in your backswing.
You can hear her, can't you, Nathan?
No,
yeah, exactly.
I'm not. I know better than to get involved in any dispute. I am not personally.
You don't like to get sucked in.
This is not a dispute. Emily typically doesn't say anything ever. Exactly. So that's where we're going with this.
I knew regardless that I was getting involved into something that I knew.
Awesome. Well, that was a great conversation there. I love that. And yeah, definitely we could do an entire podcast on that whole topic. But we're going to have to wind this down. So we got 2 more questions that we ask every single interviewee that we end the podcast with. I'm excited to hear what your thoughts on this, because you're definitely in line with our core values and everything that we talk about, our message for good success. So for good success, when you hear that term, good success, maybe not just the group of people, but the term itself, what comes to your mind? What is the first thing that you think about when you hear that term, good success?
I think that it comes to be about the greater good of what the outcome is, and it's not like one person wins and one. It's like I always think about kind of in the spirit of the go-giver. It's like you have to give it away, and the good success is when you give away, whether it's leadership or ideas or a conversation or listening or care or whatever that might be. It's kind of the outcome or the feeling that comes because you made that effort, and that others see that they also have that success and are inspired to do the same. So that's how I'd say.
Love it. Absolutely awesome. So then you got to leave the audience with one thing. So whether that's a quote, a thought, a piece of advice, maybe is another book that you want to leave for the audience. One thing you got to leave the audience with, what would that be?
It's 100% clear to me that, so we're starting 2019. I don't know if you'll have another one. Well, you said this will go in February, but it's, the second day of the year. You better have goals. You better have them written down. You better go write them down right now if you don't have them written down. You better go practice them and think about them and obsess about them and put them on your mirror and put them in your car and journal on them. And then you better have some tactical steps to go solve them, because the clearer you are of what that objective looks like, the clearer the path to it. And so, I know that every single time I have seen something really truly come to fruition in my life, in my business, in my marriage, that I have seen it, felt it, tasted it. I knew what it looked like, in that I worked, consistently in a really clear path, really clear process to get there. And oftentimes it doesn't necessarily equal what you might even think it might, but you took the opportunity and took the time and in leadership to use it, right, of yourself to put those things and write them down and go execute.
Absolutely awesome. And we could spend an entire podcast talking about goals. So we appreciate you giving that. Goals. That was awesome stuff. Awesome stuff.
Thank you, Nathan.
So if somebody wanted to contact you, I know you mentioned it a little bit at the beginning of the podcast, but let's go over that again. So contact information, maybe email address, website. How can people get a hold of you?
Sure. So email is Nathan, Nathan, at bridgeequity.com. It has one E, bridgeequity.com. We thought it was a great idea. It's a terrible idea. So that's one. You can connect with me on Facebook, just Nathan Brooks, and Google me, find me there. And then, for a turnkey client, if you're looking for that, bridgeturnkey.com, if we can help you with your investing. And then for a meetup, if you're in the KC area or, want to just connect with other like-minded folks, then, Bridge Real Estate Investing Meetup on Facebook. And maybe that's too many. I don't know.
It's all good.
No,
it's all good.
Awesome.
It's perfect. It gives people options. So that's great.
Whatever you got.
Yeah. Nathan, thank you so much for being on the show today. It was a great show. A lot of nuggets in this, a lot of value bombs. So make sure you guys take notes. But thank you for being on the show. And we look forward to having you back soon and possibly meet you at the mastermind at some point. So
sounds good, man. I appreciate it, guys, too. I appreciate your time, and thankful for the opportunity to be on here with you too. So
awesome stuff. That is going to do it for today's episode. We appreciate you jumping on. And again, if you haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the Good Success Podcast. We're on all the podcast platforms. Just go search for us and you'll find us there. And then the Community Go-Giver event, June 26th through 28th, is going to be an awesome event. You guys can learn more about it and get your tickets at communitygogiver.com. If you haven't followed us on our social platforms, make sure you do. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Details are going to be unraveling very soon, so you guys will see all the full lineup that we have that are going to be speaking there, all the agendas and everything that's going on. So make sure you keep an eye out. That's going to do it for today's episode. We appreciate you jumping on. Remember to be a conduit and not a bucket.
Work to have to give.
Catch you in the next one.